Okay, so hello, Melissa. It is such a joy to see you here online. For those of you that don't know Melissa, Melissa and I go very, very long time back, actually. We met at a Stella McCartney show. It was a slightly unfortunate event for myself. It was the one time where I got booked for a show. I had totally hands up said I am not a silk gymnast. However, the choreographer seemed to think that maybe she could make one out of me. Sadly, she could not, and I was dropped off the show for the day, but Melissa and I still stayed in contact. And then fast forwarding a few years, we've met up a few times. Every single time I meet Melissa, I feel so inspired. I feel a little more rounded. I feel a little more sacred. I feel a little more like I'm ready to take on the world again. You always leave me with a new perspective on life. And that's really why I invited you here today, so that other people can walk away and also feel like, wow, there are other ways to do life. And maybe some of the ways that you share are ways that other people can really relate to today. So Melissa, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today.
Thank you, Josie. Thank you for having me. It's very fun to connect in this way, totally novel way of us connecting. But hey, all about doing something fun and new and interesting. And I think that this is probably what the whole talk is going to be about.
100%. And then I also remember like some of our meetups were actually, I remember we once went to this yoga teacher audition. This is coming back now. And I remember because I was like in some split and you were talking us through this like very in-depth, gorgeous spiritual yin meditation something. And I was lying there and I'm sure everyone else was like, oh my God, this is painful. But I was mesmerized and kind of like hypnotized by your wording and the way that you guided it. And I just remember being like, wow, we have more things in common than I knew. Because at the time, I don't think you knew, but I'm an intuitive healer. So, this is everything that I do on this plane really is just about helping myself and others to live a life that feels soul-led and soulful. And so in terms of those words, my love, I know that you are very much in the same flow as me, always looking at life as an experiment and trying out, testing out new ways of doing things. And so when we had a little chat prior to our talk today, you mentioned something about going away from the institution, the system of money. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? What does that look like for you?
Well, I feel like I've had this like intuitive revulsion against work since childhood. I would get, I don't know, a babysitting job at 14 and just like run away screaming, or a job like my brother got me a job in Smith and Hawken in like the garden center as a teenager. And I did it for one day and then I left. And it's just been this like entire history since my teen years of having this intuitive revulsion against this obligation to work, and so, but with that being said, I went through life and I did some things that I was proud of because they, were difficult, like even just starting, a modeling career in New York and then moving to London and whatever. And so, I had my fair share of interesting successes in that sphere. However, I, starting a few years ago, had this whole kind of experience that made me start to evaluate, first of all, the way that I have material things in my life, meaning the creation of waste. And I started to transition to a zero waste lifestyle. And that made me evaluate everything in my life on a physical plane. And I've always been in like natural minimalist, but still there were so many things in there that I realized I didn't need. And then I realized that I had been sort of swallowing these lies about products that I needed, and those things cost money, which then increased this pressure to earn money. And as I was starting to realize these things just through the simple act of beginning to look more closely and realizing the impact this had on the earth, this made me start to think about the entire concept of money and how, even that is really not that old when you think of the whole history of humans' life on earth. And when I started thinking in that way, it just expanded my perspective out, because I think just the notion that we need, for example, money, that we need to work, it keeps thinking within certain parameters. And so basically I was living in Florence. This is going back a couple of years. I had given notice on my flat, and I thought, you know what, that's it. I'm gonna, instead of trying to make myself more comfortable by figuring out how to earn more money, I'm going to make myself more comfortable with less money. Again, I had the previous experience of going zero waste and seeing my spending just drop when I realized I didn't need the vast majority of things that I was purchasing. Again, being a minimalist to begin with. So you can imagine people that have a lot of stuff, you know. So I saw that like my reliance on money was decreasing, and I thought, I'm gonna make myself more comfortable with less and less. And I left my apartment saying, how low can she go?
Yeah.
And so I basically, and it's like, you know, I used to talk about like increasing distress tolerance, like how much distress, how much uncertainty can you start to get comfortable with, right? And I grew up with a lot of financial instability, so money was this one thing that can make me really anxious. So basically, I'm like, okay, that's it, you know, getting rid of the apartment, getting rid of, you know, having any permanent residence. I have a lovely, very, very dear friend in England who had space for me to put the little belongings that I had. And I started off on this journey of having no residence and decreasing overhead in order to need less money, in order to train myself to get comfortable with less and start to test out for myself how much is money even needed. And that's sort of how the journey began.
Oh my God, I love that. Take a breath, my love. This is amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, so as a fellow minimalist myself, and as also someone who, yeah, really loves this concept of, you know, how little can I be comfortable with, and also that thing of that comfortability, or feeling safe, feeling grounded, feeling powerful in who you are, comes not from all of your possessions or your belongings, but it's really this like powerful spirit, this powerful energy that lives and breathes within you, right? And also this thing of like, you know, we are told a story, we are sold a story, and we keep buying a story about, well, if we buy this and if we buy that, then you are this, and then you can have that, and then you belong to this group, etc., etc. And it keeps us in a state of scarcity. You know, it's funny, people buy more and more and more, but usually we buy it because we're scared of somehow running out. In the same way, you know, it goes back to the whole concept of why do we collect things and why do we want more money? It's just, you know, essentially it's because we're trying to plaster over something that makes us feel empty or makes us feel scared. And so going back to this of like, when we truly tune into the energy of abundance, and, you know, like nature, the universe is abundant. There is always, even just our breath, right? Something as simple as our breath. The breath is constantly given to us in abundance, whether I think I'm having a shitty day or an amazing day, or whether I feel really proud of myself or I feel kind of ashamed or worried about myself, whatever it is, the breath doesn't stop. It's just there, supplied endlessly, right? And so our very setup, our premise as a human being on the planet is actually abundance. There is flow. There is more than enough, right? And so I really love what you're saying. And I think for me, I was really lucky because personally, I can see from the outside now that maybe I grew up with not a lot of money, but I never felt that way, ever. Like my mom was never like, oh no, we don't have enough. Like, even though like she would take me to the bank and we would have, you know, great talks with the people working there, and my mom would be applying for a loan here and there, but I never saw it as a bad thing. My mom was always just like, money comes, money goes, but her happiness, her sense of identity on the planet was not tied into money. Like, you know, and I think like, because I had that set up and her joy was so overfulfilling, I never really had the sense of attachment to money or belonging or possessions as a, you know, something that brought me into scarcity. But funnily enough, as a child, and I don't know how to start it, I started to give away my toys and I started to sell my toys. And then I started to, have less and less. And actually my family used to be like, they would make fun of me because they'd be like, oh, she's like the minimalist. And then years later, and I'm not saying you have to be a minimalist, it's not everyone's path in life, but years later, my family actually started to empty out their houses and they're like, oh, we feel so good, right? It's that thing of you think you own something, but actually that thing that you own owns you. It's
Yeah.
we only have so much energy. So anyway, just to say I can really relate to this and I find it super inspiring. And yeah, there's something really powerful about this thing of just going, I like that same thing that you said of like, how low can she go? Oh my God. Okay. So without further ado, so will you talk us through like what does like an everyday look like to you at the moment? What does that involve and revolve around? I'm just so curious, Melissa.
Do you mean just literally a day in my life?
Literally a day in your life, like what do you like even we can even call it a perfect day in the life of Melissa. So what does that include?
Well, so in part of this process, it's also kind of an internal process of getting away from, let's say, an idea taking precedence over felt reality. So like I said, as I had to go through this process of kind of testing for myself what is actually possible outside of the boundaries of the system and pushing the boundaries of my own thought through experimentation in my lived reality, then what's happened then over time is that it's become very difficult for me to live according to like an idea in my head. So whereas I think a lot of times there's like this very much feeling of people being trapped in their heads and needing checklists and planning this and, organizing and orchestrating and, goal orientation. I've actually lost the ability to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like and I think what that is really almost like this process of reverting back to what's more natural.
Yes, reverting back to nature, coming back to the body. Yeah.
Yeah, but just through getting like testing certain ideas in, like I said, in lived reality, realizing they don't hold up, and being able to let them go. And again, this requires the ability to stay in a period of discomfort for a prolonged period of time because to evaluate things takes time and experimentation. So this is a very long-winded way of answering your question. But what is a day in the life of Melissa? Well, it will just be like whatever I feel like doing, like literally.
Yeah.
Often, where I am, I'm in the mountains now. There's like a forest and a waterfall. I spend a lot of my time there. But again, this isn't like, do I wind up there most days? Almost every day? Yes. Is it like I must go to the forest or the waterfall? No, like I feel like going and so I go. And it will change during the time of day, the rhythm of the day. The light may determine how I feel about going, when I feel about going. I observe what I see there, observe changes, take omens. I'm very much about taking omens in nature. So what crosses my path, what happens? So that would be a typical day in my life. I do still love coffee. So I wake up in the morning and I have a cup of coffee. And sometimes I read if I feel like it. I have like at least an hour and a half to 2 hours with like pretty much stillness in the morning. I am not a roll out of bed person.
Oh my God, neither am I. I'm also, oh, sorry, back to you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, and there are different important people in my life that I'm in regular contact with. It could be I write a lot of poetry. But again, it's just if the mood strikes me. So I've noticed that it's very important to get away from any kind of overriding how the body feels. It's almost like a way of allowing the whole psyche and body to revert back to its more natural way of operating. So yeah, I just go with how I feel. And I have very little obligations because I don't need any money. and or not any, I'm not down to zero yet, but again, each year I'm getting like, more and more refined and seeing it go down and down and down and down, and eventually it is like my goal to like just not use it at all. And like I said, probably for me, the outer world experimentation and what I do in the outer world has a really important inner significance and impact on an emotional level. And I think, if anything, I am more geared to what's happening inside and the impact on my inner psychological landscape, or whatever you want to call it, by these outer world actions. So yeah.
No, that's beautiful. Listen, I'm just sitting here kind of stopping myself from cutting in, because I absolutely love everything you're saying, and it's exactly how, my life might look slightly different on the outside compared to yours, but the ethos and the story of my life is so similar to yours, in the same sense that I really see everything that happens in my day, not as outside experiences in terms of that was good, that was bad, etc., etc., but really like, what did it open up in me? What did it awaken within me? What was I propelled? What drew me in? What made me feel a certain way? And that's the blessing, and that's the thing that excites me. And it's actually been very interesting in my own life, because that thing, like you mentioned, in the outer world, we can create a goal, or we can have a dream about something, and there's something nice, about going, because a dream can be anything. It could be that you wake up and that day you go, I want to go to a waterfall that's even further away, right? It could be, so you're like, I'm going to try out a new route, right? So there's a sense of, there's an intention, there's a sense of body felt motivation to go there. Like, there's a sense of joy. We can call that a dream or a goal. But then it could be that en route there, you bump into a bear. Don't know, a bear, right? And maybe you'll go, you know what, dear bear, you can have the route by yourself. I'm going to go another day, right? And so you are co-creating with what is happening to you. You are not just so caught up in your head that I must go, and the waterfall is today. It was the goal. It was the dream. I need to tick the box, right? No, you are fully flowing and appreciating what is coming to you in that moment, right? And so right now it's the waterfall and the bear. But so my situation was, I had this idea that getting a driving license would be a good idea, because I love freedom, and it's not just what can I drive away from, but it's about what can I drive to. And I have never ever really ever wanted that, because I live in central London and I love walking everywhere, and I don't want to pollute the environment, and it's actually so not in alignment with me. But yet I just thought, well, my current boyfriend, we travel a lot together. He has a lot of family in the US. Maybe for future happiness, this could be a nice thing. So, and also I had so much fear tied into it, so much fear. I had so much, this sense of identity of, am I someone, maybe I can't do this at all. Like there was a massive, like, literally roadblock in my head that went, I am all of this, but I am not that, and I am not the driver, even just looking at road layouts, I was like, where do I even begin? It was, yeah. But anyway, my point is, I started that process, and, what is really interesting is I kind of just wanted to hurry it up. I wanted to hurry it up and get the car so I could get out of there. And I noticed how much was coming up for me, like all my fear, my sense of vulnerability. What if I fail? What if I can't do it? It wasn't even, what if I drive into someone? Because for some reason I was like, I wasn't scared of being behind the wheel. I was like, no, like I have good spatial awareness, but it was all the other things that it was opening up for me. So that was amazing, and sharing it with people, and because I'm not someone that easily opens up about my vulnerabilities. So this was a little access point, and I knew that. I was like, okay, I'm going to use this experience. I'm going to appreciate this experience to be open more up about what I feel vulnerable about, So I had little notes everywhere in the house, and even to the point towards the end, actually just sitting here 3 weeks away from my test, and I just realized I felt so scared of my teacher, and I tried to call the company and this and that. Long story short, I was like, oh, I have like talked myself in, which is what you were talking about, to a space where I'm believing that this is the only way I'm going to get that driving license, you know, and I've also talked myself into a space where the driving license, the end goal is the main point, even though my teacher is the bear, you know. And I basically called up and I was like, I'm out of here. No, I'm not, you know, like maybe it's in my cards later on, who knows? But for right here, right now, actually, there is no part of my body that wants to do it. And it's not even my fear. It's just like, this feels so out of alignment. This is so not me. Maybe it will be one day, and I'll wait and see. And you know, but I'm so grateful for everything that I allowed myself to explore and everything that it opened up in me. And you know, like, but again, it's those things, right? Like, it's so easy to just, like you said, get into headspace where we're ticking off list for purpose. If we're not bringing it in and going, well, how does it actually make me feel? How does my body feel with this? Whether it's about the driving license or whether it's about how you live your perfect day or how you want to live life, like when your body is tightening up it's not just a mind thing, but your whole physicality is going, no, 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 no. Well, there is a reason for that. And, you know, the listening to that and the honoring of that, right? And so yeah, I just wanted to share that. So
it's very important, very important.
Yeah, no, it really resonates. And again, just sharing my own journey a bit, like in London, it's like, so obviously, not obviously, but you know, I still have clients that I go to see, and I still have a time schedule to a point, but I have lots of freedom and I have lots of breaks. And similarly to you, like, I'll literally just be like, I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm just asking my heart, where do you want to go? Or there'll be a beautiful sunlight, you know, this evening is an amazing sunset. And I'll just follow where the sunset is, like literally nothing else. And only because it just feels beautiful. So why not? There's something, you know, if it's calling your heart, if your body feels relaxed and opened or excited, there is a reason for why you're doing that. And just fully trusting that. So I am so with you. I'm so with you on that. That just resonates so deeply.
It tends to open up surprising experiences, and you know, the unexpected. That's at least how I've experienced that one kind of action in that direction of just something that feels right, and you just go with it, and leads to some other unexpected chain of events that seem impossible to even conceive, you know?
Yes, and I love that. I love that because there's always that thing, right, where we are like, you know, we always like constantly reminding myself and others that we are co-creators. So like you were mentioning, you're walking down the street and something calls you in, or you know, like you said, you're out on a walk and you're listening, you're watching the omens, right? There's signs. You're co-creating with the universe. It's not just you going, I gotta get to this waterfall today because today is the day, right? It's like, no, like, as long as we keep on walking, as long as we actually leave our house, you know, the rest will follow. We don't need to know the whole recipe for life, right? And no one has life fully worked out. And, you know, just to, go on.
I think trying to work it out can kill off all the magic, you know, the magic of the discovery, the magic of the unexpected. But again, I feel like, you know, it requires actual deliberate, almost, I don't know what other word to use other than training. And I don't mean training in a way of going to somebody to train you, but just to train oneself to sit in a period of, you know, not knowing what exactly is going on, observing, noticing, you know, just looking for oneself rather than staying in a idea phase, because oftentimes ideas don't actually match up with lived reality and the information that comes in through our senses. So it requires like constantly getting away from the idea and saying what information is coming in through my senses. This is a slower process than using the thinking. You know, thinking can just say, oh, do this, do that, that. It's an organic process that requires time, just like all growth requires time. So with that requires the ability to stay in a little bit of unknown over a period of time, observe and notice and see for oneself, And then through that, it gets easier to go into, oh for some reason, I'm being called down this path. I'm just gonna go. And then all of a sudden, some very unexpected experience opens up that seems almost like you're in a dream, but it requires almost like a preparation, I think, for if this is a difficult thing for some people that can't get out of their head, it requires a period of training, which again is not the right word, but I don't know what other word to use, but something you can do yourself, just with the knowledge that it is possible to get more comfortable in unknown spaces, and this opens up a wider variety of experiences to people, because then they're able to go into an uncharted territory and be comfortable and confident that they can handle whatever comes their way. And then that's when I think the magic, or from my personal experience, that's where the magic happens.
100%. I love that so much. And I think even in terms of practicalities, like I always share with others, like start super small. It might be that, you're hungry and you go to the supermarket or a market, whatever, and you just like put a hand on your belly and just go, what is calling me in? Like without analyzing or criticizing it, but just really noticing. And if you can, and just be directional. So just be like, if you're noticing an orange, like go to that orange, smell the orange, have the orange, and the same thing then when you're in a room with people, notice even on the tube or wherever you are, when you are in a place or you're sitting down having your coffee, noticing people walking by, notice what people stands out to you, but as in what people are calling you in, whose energy feels exciting, or there's something soothing, or there's something there for you. And then make it your decision to walk over to that person, or if that's too intense, then just observe them. In social engagements, the same thing. Instead of mentally go, ooh, it's a good idea if I speak to this person because blah blah blah. No, like let go of the agenda and just trust essentially your instinct, or it doesn't matter if we call it intuition or whatever we're calling it, but trust that whatever is calling you in is taking your or calling on your attention for a reason. So starting with something as subtle as that, I always feel like can be a really nice starting point. When we are experimenting with releasing some of the very conditioned thought patterns that we all have, thought patterns, behaviors, habits that we all have.
I like the fact that you use the word subtle. I think that that's an important word, because these processes are way more subtle. I agree. And for me also, like I didn't even mention like part of it. I know we're on technology right now, but part of the experience of me, decreasing my reliance on the entire system has been slowly decreasing technology's presence in my life and complete ejection from social media. And what I noticed is like it took about 2 years for some of the more subtle processes and things like reaction time, just perceptual things, emotional perceptual, like very, very subtle ability to detect on a more imperceptible level things. It took about 2 years of decreasing the presence of technology in my life to start to notice a difference. And at the beginning of me saying this, I actually had a point that was kind of unrelated, and now I don't remember what I was going to say. But I think that there's a lot of denigration about living in this kind of way. That can also cause people to think that it's an irrational mode of being. That word irrational, I think this is what I wanted to say. The word irrational is tossed around a lot, like if something is not rational or mathematical or logical, that it implies, or the presumption is that it's the opposite, which is irrational. But what I like to say instead is there's a prefix called supra, which means beyond. And so just because something is not rational, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is an irrational mode of being, but it could be supra-rational, beyond rationality.
I love that.
Yeah. So this is and this is again, like I said, getting away from ideas, testing and lived reality.
Is everyone okay? Are you okay, Melissa?
I'm fine. I'm literally like no, I'm not in I'm not in my home. I'm in yeah, no, it's that's like the fact that stuff fell off the this is okay, so this is something that I would immediately weave in a synchronistic significance.
100%. I'm
You know
sitting
what
here
I
too, we're like
mean?
breaking the patterns, we're breaking the cycles, and like we're literally calling in, and the big bang needed to be there to reset and realign into this new structure of thought and thinking and energy that we're now in. Yes.
Yeah, so the super rational, when you get away from like, then unexpected things happen that have these significances, and but it requires testing it in reality, testing it through your own senses, getting away from any idea one has about reality, how it should be, and going and testing for yourself. So it's essential to remove limitations on thought. Anything that one thinks is a given, it has to be tested. It
Oh
has
my,
to be tested.
100%. And I love these words that you just mentioned, which is limitation on thought, right? So I just had my little sister over from Denmark. She's 21 now. And she was very happily telling me she has a new job. She's really happy there. There's some amazing people there. She feels like she's part of a family. It's so beautiful. And then she mentioned to me that prior to that, which sadly I wasn't aware of, prior to that, she'd been in a situation where she was, she felt so badly treated. She felt so manipulated. She had a boss that was, yeah, just sadly, obviously her boss was in a very bad space. But the thing is, at that point in time, she kept thinking, this is my only option in life, right? So she had that limited belief, her limitation in her brain, in the prison of her own mind was going, this is my best option in life right now, right? And yeah, right, I know. My heart was breaking. And then, she found her way, she found her feet, she finally had the courage. She started to look outside of the box, outside of the prison. Now she's in this amazing place. And, she was like, look, even my boss said this thing. And, like, it's so obvious that from when I last saw her, which was about a year ago, and I could see that, she had like a cloud hanging over her. And she almost like, she's shorter than me, but she looked even shorter, like she was really carrying a lot. Sadly, she didn't share at the time with me exactly what was going on. And then now, not only is she a year older, but she's like 10 years taller. Like, she's tall. She had this lightness about her. She was excited. And, we were sitting down and I was kind of, just reminding her and me that, everything we can co-create with life, anything that we allow ourselves to believe is possible, like this. And I'm not sitting here just going like, oh, just believe anything and anything can happen, but honestly, like you were mentioning, like you're talking about, we're constantly, it is us that is blocking us. It is not, it's not my parents' fault. It is whatever was passed down to me. We always have the ability to choose to start other actions, to choose to start to experiment with other thought patterns. And so the thing with her, I was sitting here going like, right now, your brain has accepted, you have a thought pattern in your mind that has accepted that this is possible for me. A year ago, your brain has accepted that the best choice in life is having a boss that is constantly bringing me down, but that's still my better option. Now you're in a new space, and the only thing that's changed is you decided to go, oh, there's something bigger for me here, there's something more suitable, there's something more aligned for me here, right? And I was like, I wonder where you're going to be in 2 years. And it's not about the success story of the job or whatever, but it is about what our brain will accept or not accept, and how when we choose to question that, everything can change and will change.
Yeah. I think definitely. I think also the sort of environmental influences on people, and sort of like the just a very oppressive society that we live in, and how does that get internalized in the psyche, and then how is it, what is the process of starting to recognize, okay, where do these beliefs come from? They may not necessarily originate inside the person, but they get internalized in from the outside. And then it's a process of how do you start to eject the alien presence, inside one's mind. It's literally like an eviction, or you can call it an exorcism if you want to, like, because they block these internalized voices block dynamic movement.
Mm.
And I'm very, very much into linguistics, language, etymology. And I happen to look up for, and sometimes it'll just be, again, it'll be using my feeling. I'll see a word somewhere. It could be the most familiar word you've ever seen in your life, but I get a feeling, or I could hear almost like an alarm or something, and I'll look it
Mhm.
up. And so at one point I came not recently, like within the past several months, I came across the word fact, and it's like a word that everybody knows, right? And so I decided, okay, something's telling me to go search the etymology of fact. And I don't know, have you read 1984 by any chance? George Orwell's 1984, it's like about a so-called dystopian novel about kind of it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically our present, let's put it that way. But anyway, in this novel, there is what's called a Newspeak dictionary, which is a dictionary that the design of the dictionary is to purge meanings from words in order to limit the range of people's thoughts. Now, if you go into because language has, anyway, if you go into our dictionary now, presently, you will see so-called obsolete meanings of words. Meanings of words that people don't even realize are embedded within the word. You can track them down on occasion, but eventually they get purged entirely. Anyway, so I decided, what is a fact, in this information age, what is a fact? And the so-called obsolete and so-called archaic meaning of fact was an act. A fact is an act. And the etymology is performance, feat, doing. It's something you do. That's what a fact is. A fact is an act that you do for yourself. It's not something deposited into your mind by some so-called expert outside.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah, so this kind of links up to what I was saying, that everything has to be tested in reality. And part of the ways that people can get, eject these alien presences of a very, oppressive society, or these, commandments, or from what I call compulsory consumption, the way you start to eject these things out, because of course the human needs to believe in a capitalistic, consumption-oriented environment, industrial environment, that we need things in order to be whole. Otherwise, who's going to sell a product?
Oh, 100%. And who's
You know
going
what
to
I
buy it,
mean?
right? Yeah.
No one will make any money. So the way you start to decrease the power of these kinds of embedded ideas or beliefs is to act against them. So in the example with your sister, she believed a certain thing that she didn't have any other options. And then she, was able to, for whatever reason, find a different option. And that made her realize through her lived experience that she did have different options.
Right.
And for example, like it was with the process of me going through my zero waste that I realized, I don't need this product, I don't need that product, I don't need this product, I don't need that product, and then that becomes something known through the actual act of refusing to continue to purchase them. Just the importance of taking
Of the act.
action.
100%. No, 100%. And it becomes a lived philosophy or a lived way of life. I absolutely love that. And that is exactly why you and I can sit here and talk all day about the importance of choosing everything that you decide to be part of. So whether it's where you live, the things that fills your space, the people that fills your space, but also the people that fills your head, right? The people you listen to online, the things that you watch, the things that you read, all of it. And allowing oneself and choosing to take the time and making it a daily practice of letting go of that which truly is not empowering you and not inspiring you and not lifting your heart, and creating space for that which does. And as you're mentioning, question marking everything. And it's always that same thing, because I've been super blessed. I have a lot of clients and a lot of gorgeous friends from all around the world. And the one thing that we all desire, not just to be seen and loved back and all that kind of gorgeous thing and a sense of belonging, but it's always that thing that there is so much more, that there is so much more option, that there is so much more, that there is always another way. And through that, and that is always through the act, of the same way that when every single time something as simple as going, I don't want this book in my life anymore, and I'm just going to let it go, and it's completely okay, right? Something as simple as that, because what you're saying to yourself right now is like, this is not me, this is not who I am. And if you can do it with things, and you can do it with people, and you can do it with situations, and with work, and with systems, then you can also do it with thoughts, right? And that's the super powerful thing. It's like, hey, this is a thought, this is a thinking pattern, this is a fear, this is a scenario, but I can actually let it move along. It doesn't mean, like, it's like, okay, it's okay. I saw it. This was scary, or I heard it, and I allow it to move along. That's okay, right? So then it's yeah, and it's I so resonate with this. It's a constant work, but that's okay. It's an exciting work. I don't mind doing the work, because I couldn't imagine not doing the work. So I really resonate with that, Melissa. Wow. So okay, so let's go into a little bit of practicalities, because I'm so with you. Everyone finds their own path, and there's no one path that is right for everyone, right? Like, everyone is exactly where they need to be, and everyone is doing what they need to be realizing and doing at that moment in time. At least those are my beliefs. But from where you sit in terms of practicalities, so you're saying that you're still on your zero waste journey, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's like a permanent
Yeah.
commitment.
Okay,
Yeah, so that on a practical level, are you asking
that's
how
it.
does
Yeah,
it
I'm just
work?
asking because, obviously so many people will be feeling really inspired by this, and will you share a little bit more, like, so from, wherever you were in the world when you started on this journey of the zero
Uh-huh.
waste,
Yeah.
um, how, what did that look like for you?
At the time I started, I was still living in Florence, and I can't even remember how it happened. But I found out that there was just like one of those bulk refill stores in the city, and it happened to be a 40-minute walk from my apartment. And I decided that I just did not want to be complicit anymore. Like, I was just like, I do not want to harm Mother Earth. I just
Right.
refuse to do it, and I
Yeah.
will go to any lengths to stop. And so it was a 40-minute walk from my apartment. I lived like up 10 flights of stairs. My friends used to call it Rapunzel's Tower. And it was 40 degrees in the summer, and I would walk 40 minutes in 40-degree heat to go to this refill store and get all the like pasta, oats, whatever you could possibly need, like pumpkin seeds, cinnamon, and I know how to sew, and so I decided that everything that I make would be just from natural materials that can compost back into the earth. And so I made myself little bags that I can refill stuff, because I couldn't physically manage to carry like jars on my
No,
back.
of course not. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and at that point, I decided, and I hadn't bought clothes and I can't even remember how long. And so I was like, anything moving forward, I will make it and make sure that it's like, again, from all natural materials, including the thread, so the whole thing could be composted. But anyway, so I made myself these little bags, and I would walk 40 minutes in the 40-degree heat, 40 minutes back with all of the stuff on me, then up the 10 floors of my Rapunzel's tower. And
Yes.
and that was how I started. And then like for things like produce, I would just go to farmers markets, and they would sell like the loose organic produce at the farmers market and buy it
Yeah.
directly from the farmer.
Yeah.
And so that way there would be no packaging. Some things like, as simple as like, what do I wash my face with? Literally just almond oil that I refill up in a glass bottle at a refill store. Again, started this whole process in Florence. So for me, food is very simple. It's just like bulk refill for anything dry or anything like, I don't use cleaning products. I absolutely detest them. I can go on a rant for hours about the toxicity of cleaning products, but I just use baking soda
Yeah.
or vinegar, and so you can get all of that at the refill store. And bar soaps instead of anything packaged. And so that's how I started, and that's what I've continued to do. And at some point, eventually, if I have access to land, the whole goal is for me to grow my own food. Potentially, I will be able to start that this spring. But again, that takes time to find the place, but in the meantime, I just support local organic farmers at markets. Now where I am, I have to take a train like an hour and a half for the bulk of the stuff. I can get some stuff locally. There's a little refill store where I am, but not like everything I need. So I take the train an hour and a half,
I love that.
and it's not a
And
problem.
no, no, of course, because it's also no, but it's also the thing is, it's like just going back to, I know you said, I don't know how it started, but what you did say, and I think this is what is clearly shining through, is that it's your love of the earth. You did not want to harm Mother Earth anymore,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so, and I know that everyone can sit there and go like, oh, but it's so overwhelming, and where does one start? And it's always that thing of, well, every little helps, and it literally does, because think about it, nearly 9 billion people on our planet, right? And not everyone will choose your path, and that's okay, right? But we can all do a little bit, even, the same thing with what you choose to eat. Even if you just choose that one day a week you are going to the organic section, but that still helps. One day a week you're going to eat vegetarian, and that still helps. Like, we all do things in the way that we feel called to do. And so when I listen to your story, I'm sitting here going like, well, this makes total sense, because for me that also fills my heart with a sense of purpose in knowing that I'm doing my bit. And I totally get that won't resonate with everyone, but going back to the core of it, it's your why, it's your love of our planet. It doesn't come, and again, it's a physical experience, because all those moments in my life where I've gone into a different route, it's always been a physical experience. It hasn't been like, oh, I should do this thing. It's been like, oh my God, I can't do this thing anymore. Like, literally, like, it was in my bones. I had to choose other ways of life. Whether that was for me going, similar to you, I used to do a lot of modeling, and I remember running a retreat in Glastonbury, and it was the first retreat I feel like I ran in Glastonbury, and I was standing on top of the Tor, which is this beautiful hill where we have two ley lines meeting, Michael and Mary. So these two gorgeous energy lines of the land. And I was standing on top of that Tor, and I literally, it was the last day of the retreat, so I'd finished my work as a retreat host, but I was standing with one of my clients who ended up being an amazing, amazing friend of mine, inspirator of mine, etc. And she was holding me because I literally broke down crying, and like this kind of like, the whole body shaking kind of thing. And she kept going, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I just kept having this feeling of like, I cannot go back to how I used to live my life. Like, I cannot. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now. I cannot. And then later on, once I'd had the physical experience and the tears and the shattering of my body was starting to calm down, I could put some words on it. And what it was about was that, as much as from the outside I had lived a life that on many levels made sense, but it was so not in alignment with what my soul came here to do. And whether you want to call it your soul and what just feels right in your heart or in your body, whatever words you want to use. But I had only been sharing part of myself. In the retreats, for instance, the energy healing was something I was doing a bit on the side, and and it's great. It's how we start everything out in life, right? We do a little bit, and then if something feels right, we can do a bit more, etc. But I didn't have a choice. I could no longer override what my whole being wanted to do and say and express. So that thing that you mentioned earlier in our chat today, where you were like, there was a time where you could operate from the headspace and, to-do list and goals and very goal orientated. And then all of a sudden you're like, I can't even do it anymore. And I totally get that, because neither can I. So yeah, I've lost my thread, but I want to share that. It felt important.
Well, I think as well, when like just with like the earth, for example, that it's a holistic kind of it's a holistic entity that we are a part of. And so what I found through my own experimentation, like I said, if fact is an act, is that every act in the outer world did have a psychological, emotional impact on me.
Mm.
So it was both my desire to refuse complicity. I wanted to take personal responsibility for myself. Doesn't
Yes.
mean that I think me going zero waste is going to save the planet. I'm not delusional. You know, it may have no impact at all whatsoever. But what it does have is a psychological and emotional impact on an inner level as well. And that could have some kind of knock-on effect that I may not even be aware of, you know? And so what I found is that, you know, for example, like a lot of people may think that food should not cost, you know, should not be the bulk of their spending, you know, or they can't afford such and such food, organic food, whatever. But what I found when I started to go through this zero waste transition was, like I said, through looking more closely at everything that was in my life, at really starting to look at it, it didn't require any sense of deprivation for me to let it go, because what came up naturally was a disgust instinct and the instinct of revulsion of this stuff in my life, because the vast majority of what people pay to bring into their home is poisonous to them. Even if you just think of cleaning products, like they absolutely destroy the microbiome, you know, they cause all sorts of inflammatory, you know, whatever, you name it. Everything that has presence in one's life costs literal money. And the vast majority of what has presence in people's life are literal, actual toxic carcinogens. So then what happens is when you start to get rid of all of this stuff that is absolutely poisonous, that one has been tricked into spending one's money on, then all of a sudden, the really important things in life can come into clearer focus, like what one puts in one's body. Like food is the like foundation of life, you know? And so like I've literally, that's been this whole process, is just whittle it down, whittle it down, whittle it down, where just the essentials are what I use at this point the money for. Eventually, like I said, it's to, you know, be self-sufficient even with it when it comes to food. But the fact that you suddenly realize that there is more to spend on something like food that won't poison oneself or poison the earth and other people, when the vast majority of non-essential things are seen for what they are. And once you open your eyes to lies, I call it spying the lie, it requires zero willpower to get rid of the things, because you no longer want it on a visceral level. And then you don't need to rely on willpower because you've spied the lie. So it's all about opening eyes to lies.
100%. And it's also, I mean, you know, from listening to you, like this has been your personal and still is a personal ongoing journey, but towards even greater empowerment, and not just, you know, you fully, not just relying, but realizing that you are, you know, that you are powerful beyond measure. And I'm not sitting here going in tropes of like, oh, Melissa has to be up here. It's not that. But it's that thing of like, when we as individuals, and I know this is such a hard conversation, but when we take full responsibility for our own happiness, our own contentment, also our suffering, for all of it, when we choose to take full responsibility, a huge amount of resilience and a huge amount of drive and a huge amount of pure raw energy, live energy, literally, right? Like even my voice gets deeper. But it is that. So for you, right, we all have different empowering journeys, and we keep, you know, spiraling in and out of at all times. But like that thing of choosing. So, you know, you are choosing what you are consuming on all levels. But through that, you are reminding yourself that, oh my God, I have a choice in the first place, right? So this is just beautiful, Melissa. I really, really, really love this so much. But because it goes back to the same thing over and over and over again, we only believe what we can see. Most of us, we only believe what we can see, right? And then once we see something, we can't unsee it. Hallelujah for that. So like you said, that thing of, you used that word, what did you call it? Spy, what was it? That thing of,
By the lie.
that's inspiring the lie. That's it, right? It's like once you've seen it, you can't unsee it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
see clearer and clearer and clearer. And then every
yeah,
single time you choose something, you choose, this is for me, this is not for me. And
yeah,
that goes for anything in your life.
yeah,
Continuing to remind ourselves that we have choice. So we have choice in how we choose to live our life, who we choose to involve ourselves with, how we spend our time on this planet, and that we are co-creating with the planet, because the planet, whether you choose to call her Mother Earth, whether it's for whatever it is for anyone out there, I think what we can all agree on is that it is a gorgeous living entity. It's a living, breathing organism. Our earth is not something that we are on top of. It's something that we can continue to plant ourselves into. And again, it's a relationship. And again, not saying that we all have to go, we all, we might not all have the desire to become farmers or to live off the land, but we, in general, as a species, so many of us feel so far removed that it doesn't hurt us. Like, we don't feel hurt by the fact that there's lots of waste, lots of packaging, whereas, and I'm not sitting here to trump my own trumpet, but for me, it's not a thought experience. It's literally a physical, like, I really, 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 really just want to do whatever I can in my capacity to help all of us connect more with nature. So even just in the terms of, like, yes, lots of recycling, that's the best I can do right here, right now. That's what I'm choosing to do. But it's also like caring for my plants that we have in our home. Like, our plants comes from the earth. They're still part of nature. You don't necessarily need to go in and live in the forest, as much as that's beautiful. And if that's your call, great. But it could even be just care. And because again, fact is an act. Care, what actions are you choosing with the nature that is in your home? Something as simple as just having a plant. Because I always I bring everything back to nature. I'm always like, well, everything starts in the dark. That's a seed. And having a real sense of care also gives us a sense of belonging, which we all long for, right?
yeah, I agree. That's very true. Very, very true. And it sort of expands out like the focus, because oftentimes people are like, is very much trained to like focus too much, navel gazing, but in reality, humans evolved in an environment where you're out in the elements and you're scanning for predators, and you're not paying attention, no one's pontificating about like, oh, what happened to me? And, it's like you're looking at your outer environment, and what's happening is people are being very tricked to look too much on themselves for the source of their distress and not see the predators and the different covert forms of threats that are in the modern environment now, which are legion. And part of the process, which I haven't even mentioned yet, of like this whole, like after I got rid of my apartment and put everything in storage and decided to not have a home, I had to come up with creative ways to keep a roof over my head. So I did different things. I roofed on farms, on occasion would stay with friends. And then I had something come up where someone said, oh, can you look after my cat? This was in Iceland, and I'd wanted to, and so I was like, okay, I'll look after the cat. And then I realized, oh, I can start to like pet sit when people are away,
Yeah.
and keep a roof over my head. And I'm not supporting Airbnb, for example, taking, rentals off the market for local population. I'm not using money. It's totally ecological. And so I started doing that. And again, there was no planning involved, and it all just happened. And then after this period of being in different homes, one after the other, what it did was, again, first of all, make me realize just how much poison is in people's houses, and to the point that like that I started to see with my own eyes just how bad the situation was and how badly people have been tricked and lied to in this, again, like very industrial, consumer-oriented society. Everything costs money, and the vast majority of it is poisonous. Not only the packaging, but the contents. And so I started to realize, I'm kind of in these environments that are completely toxic beyond comprehension, as are these animals, you know, and the food they're being fed is completely artificial. And what is the history of, let's say, dog food? Does anybody even look into it, you know? Like, and start to, again, look deeper, what, spy the lie, constantly looking to spy the lie, get to know the environment. There is not a single person who lives in nature, you know, in prehistory, who would not know their environment like in precise detail, you know? So we have to start paying attention. So what I realized then this experience did for me, I was utterly, because I was not using money, I could not construct an artificial environment for myself. I could not shield myself from the reality of the environment other people were creating for me. So suddenly I was in the position of all other life on earth other than humans, plants, animals, everybody that has to deal with what humans are doing. I suddenly was in the same, one could say, dependent, not really, but you know what I mean. I couldn't exert control over my environment because I was relying on not using money, so I had to live in whatever it was that the human had created. And that is the situation for every single life form on earth. So suddenly, that once again, without any planning, expanded my perspective out from the human perspective alone. And then it became impossible for me to look at things solely from the perspective of the human. But again, not because of some abstract idea, but because of a lived, experienced reality.
Yes. Josie, wow, this is so powerful, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this and for choosing this path and really living and walking and speaking and breathing this path wherever it takes you next. I want to ask you, you were mentioning that, I mean, because there's so many avenues you can go down, but I would like to ask you, poetry. So you're writing poetry, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I write under an alias.
Of course
I
she
perform
does.
on occasion, I perform publicly, but under an alias. So if someone meets me, they don't meet her. If they meet her, they don't meet me.
Oh, many women, many souls, many lives. Here she goes. I love that. Oh my God, you gorgeous woman. Can I ask you what's your astrological star sign?
Aries.
And what's your ascending or your moon? Do you know?
Libra moon, Sagittarius rising.
Oh, so I'm Sagittarius rising too.
Are
That's amazing. And
you?
you've got your Libra and your, oh wow, really nice. So two in fire, one in air.
And the Venus
Gorgeous.
in Taurus. Venus
Ah,
factors very heavily in
ah,
my, yeah, so.
absolutely amazing. Okay, well, I was hoping that people might be able to read you, but not yet. The world is not ready yet.
Anybody who wants to can get in touch with me. Like, I
Oh
do
yeah.
everything old school. There's
Okay.
no following stuff on Instagram, none of that. It's
Mhm.
just eradicated from my life. But I am perfectly available for anybody who wants to get to know someone in an old school kind of way. Or I would say, like, you know, they'd probably have to send me an email. That's like the most technological thing that I could do. But
Listen, Melissa, this has been such a joy, and I love and celebrate everything that you stand for. And I love this new rebellious. And you know what? So from listening to you now, the rebel has obviously always been there. It's been gorgeous because I've sort of seen you from the outside, and then have had an insight every now and then I've seen you from the outside in terms of not on social media, because even when you were on them, I'm never on social media either. Like I post stuff, but I don't actually read anything, so I'm never on it. But just sort of like being with you now, feeling your presence, like I can really feel this fire, but this fire is so gorgeous. It's unapologetic. It's you. It wants to come through, and I'm just so excited to see where it takes you next. And thank you so much for sharing about your journey. And absolutely, if it's okay with you, any details that you would like to share, I'll put in the show notes. In anyone who might be, I know people will be fascinated, but there might be specific questions, or if you feel comfortable with that, then people can reach you there. So, Melissa, is there any last message that you would like to share that we haven't covered today?
don't think so. I feel like the most important thing, like I said, is that everything has to be verified through one's own bodily senses. Always always try to get away from an idea one has about reality and just see and feel for yourself. And what that does is open up the ability then, if things don't match up with the idea in one's head, then you can start to get creative. It gets the creative thinking mind going, and creativity brings a lot of joy to people. The human is a very innovative, very creative creature naturally, very self-reliant, very self-sufficient, and able to handle a tremendous amount of uncertainty. This has just been slowly, kind of bred out of us over millennia, but it is in there, So I would say, just test reality for yourself. And then once you see what you see, decide, does it work for you or not? If it doesn't, keep it moving. Life is always in motion. Everything alive is in constant motion.
Oh my God, 100%. And it's so juicy. This last part, I mean, all of it was amazing. But yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And especially that thing of life is always in motion, keep moving. The only thing that's actually required of us as a human being is we get out of bed and we keep moving one foot in front of the next, and life will unravel in its own time, as it always does. You will never leave your house fully understanding or knowing everything that's going to happen. And thank God for that. So on that happy note, let's trust in the unknown. Remember that life is always here calling us home, and that there are other gorgeous people out there that really resonates with how you feel, think, and feel called to live life. So do life on your terms. And Melissa, thank you so much. I hope to see you when you're in London one day.
Yes, pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to stop the recording. So much
Okay.
love, everyone.